you've returned. Or perhaps merely curious how far the descent goes. Welcome back to Watching the Defectives, where I, Barrett, attempt to solve the greatest mystery in modern English politics. Not who these people are, but why do they keep happening? Tonight's case is particularly operatic, although it might have you singing the blues. There ain't nothing like a dame. Dame Andrea Marie Jenkins is nothing like one either. Singer allegedly, politician of sorts, defective definitely, mayor unfortunately, and, as we shall discover, a woman who has treated consistency as a purely optional accessory. The formation of a narrative, completed conception in 1974, in Beverley, Humberside, raised in Lincolnshire, a fairly ordinary beginning, which makes what follows all the more impressive. She leaves school at 16, works at Greggs, 18 years in retail, climbs to management, later studies as a mature student, Open University, then a degree in international relations. Now, let us be clear. This is the part of the story one could almost admire if the person involved were not Andrea Jenkins. Their grit, their determination, even their climb. And if it were anybody else, it would have been admirable. However, everything that follows is deeply, deeply frustrating. The performer emerges. Outside politics, she is a trained soprano. Recorded a pop album which made a great ashtray. Reached the finals of Miss United Kingdom. The judges should have gone to Specsavers. But of course she did. Because nothing says future legislator quite like a CV that reads like 3 entirely different people applied for the same life. Singer allegedly. Beauty contestant doubtfully. Retail manager a possibility. International relations graduate curiously. At this point, one suspect's destiny itself was unsure what to do with her, so simply handed her to politics and hoped for the best as life's waste bends were full to the brim. Then came the shock 2015 victory. The general election. Andrea Jenkins defeats Ed Balls, a shadow chancellor, a senior figure, heavyweight in more ways than one. No pie shop was deliberately ignored. He was defeated by a political newcomer with a majority of 422 votes. 422. In electoral terms, that is not a landslide. That is a strong gust of wind, a loud rasping fart. History will record it as a victory. A detective would call it an accident that stuck. Brexit. The defining obsession. Now we arrive at the great obsession. Brexit. Jenkins does not merely support it, she inhabits it. Joins, leave means leave. Attacks Theresa May.
Could I say to my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, she has tried her best. Nobody could fault or doubt her commitment and sense of duty, but she has failed. She has failed to deliver on her promises. We have lost 1,300 hard-working councillors, and sadly the public no longer trust her to run the Brexit negotiations. Isn't it time to step aside and let someone new lead our party, our country and the negotiations?
First of all, may I say to my honourable friend that I'm sorry that we saw so many good Conservative councillors lose their seats last week, very often for no fault of their own. I've been a councillor. I know the hard work and dedication that it takes. I've also been a councillor who has stood in an election against a difficult national background under a Conservative government, so I know what that feels like as well. And I thank all those councillors for their hard work, and I congratulate those Conservative councillors who won their seats for the first time across the country as well. Can I also say to my honourable friend, actually, this is... No, wait for it. Actually, this is not an issue about me, and it's not an issue about her. If it were an issue about me and how I vote, we would already have left the European Union.
Threatens rebellion. Demands ideological purity. Submits letters of no confidence. Calls for leadership changes. At one point declaring, "The Prime Minister's premiership is over. A bold statement, particularly from someone whose own political lifespan would later resemble a mayfly. The infamous moment 2019. BBC Politics Live. A simple question is asked. Name countries trading solely on WTO terms with the EU. A straightforward query. One might expect an answer. Instead, we receive silence, confusion, evasion. Nothing. Jenkins resembles the proverbial rabbit caught in the headlights. The sound of posterior cheeks squeaking was very evident in that moment. And in that moment, that single, glorious, excruciating moment, the illusion cracks. Because politics, you see, thrives on confidence, but occasionally irreversibly breaks down, and not even the AA can rescue you. Climbing anyway. Despite this, she survives. 2019 election, wins again, with a vastly increased majority. Because British politics is not a meritocracy, it is a weather system, and in 2019 the storm favoured her. She becomes vice chair of the European Research Group, the group that has research in its name, but never actually does any research, and is not very open as to the source of its funding. However, this is a promotion, of sorts. If one considers ideological echo chambers to be promotions, abuse and reality. Now, to be fair, and we must be fair, Jenkins receives abuse. Which, let's be honest, is not really surprising given her character. She did, however, receive numerous threats, some disgusting and violent messages. This is unacceptable, indefensible. It says far more about the state of public discourse than it does about her. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Being treated badly does not make one correct. It merely makes one also a victim. And politics, tragically, has room for both victims and poor judgment simultaneously.
More and more MPs' homes have been targeted by protesters recently. And just this morning, a prominent MP shared a truly sickening email that was sent anonymously to former Education Minister Dame Andrea Jenkins. It says, "Dear Dame Jenkins, I hope you're doing well. I've been facing anti-Semitism for a long time in Morley. That got your attention, you dirty little posh white slut. Hope your little boy Clifford is getting molested at school by his black and brown nannies. That would teach you a thing about multiculturalism. Maybe he might get raped by a refugee. We know where you are and your filthy little Clifford, and we hope Hamas comes for you lot." So, obviously we weighed up whether or not to read that out, but I think it's important to get the detail out there. I'm pleased to say that Andrea Jenkins joins me now. Andrea, how are you?
Just hearing it again, Patrick, actually. I'm a strong person, Patrick. This is about my 9th one now. I've had people walking down Morley High Street threatening to blow me up. I've had 8 emails from one constituent, which the police dismissed. I had to get the Home Secretary at the time involved, telling me to buy a stab vest. I've had the C word used and telling me to be filled with barbed wire, die in a pool of my own excrement. It just goes on. And every time people get let off, Patrick, and said it's not a credible threat. And I'm sick of it, to be honest with you. But today is the only time I really wanted to quit, Patrick. They've gone after my little boy. You know, when you've got MPs that have their families at home, I've got my little 6-year-old who I adore, and I've got CCTV and everything, and people pulled my fences down before, and it's just, you know, you should not invite people to go to your home and protest in that way. It's irresponsible.
What was the police response like to an email that you received, which, again, sorry to say this again, but I mean, it did threaten your own child with rape?
Well, my team didn't tell me immediately. They wanted to deal with the police. They was trying to protect me, but obviously I'd rather them tell me, because then I can put measures in place. I can understand what they was doing, definitely. So they tried to handle it, bless them. And then I got told this morning, and I just felt numb. I felt sick, and I burst out crying. And it's not like me. I'm quite a strong person. And I phoned the police, and yeah, fair play. You know, the people I'm speaking to, they're doing their full investigation. But, it was probably looking at the time of the email to be told the person was probably drunk. I'm sorry, but that's no excuse.
No excuse.
And I'm sick of it time and time again to say that things are not a credible threat. And I'm really angry about this, Patrick, actually. I adore my boy. I live for my little boy, like most parents do. And he's 6 years old, for God's sake. And the way they wrote that, they're obviously against Israel for saying, oh, that got you attention. Obviously racist. They keep saying about hate crimes. You know, is this not a hate crime, for God's sake? And they keep saying, and look at the end where it said about Hamas. So I think that sort of speaks volumes of the kind of person this is. But I'm sick of it. Look at the streets. It's not just about MPs, Patrick. It is about everybody on the street, up to here with a two-tier policing system. And I want to see the Prime Minister, every police force, the useless Mayor of London get a grip of every police force along the country. We need zero tolerance policing. No crime should be small enough that it isn't punished. Everybody's had enough, and we've got to get a grip, Patrick.
So you've had a lot of death threats, basically,
Yes.
and some really vile things.
Yes.
And so...
I mean, the worst one was in the hairdressers. I was on my Morley High Street, the hairdressers. My niece was getting married the next day, so I was getting my hair done. And I was phoned up by the police, stay there, somebody's walking around Morley High Street threatening to blow you up. And I said to the hairdressers, have you got a back door in case I need to run? Then I was thinking, God, how do I keep them safe? And it was horrible. And then the guy said, oh, it was a joke. I hate the Tories. And he got let off. And I'm just sick of this, Patrick. You know, it shouldn't be one rule if you know, does this happen to Labour MPs? Do they keep getting let off? I'd love to see the stats. Because they keep getting let off, the people with me. Well, do you know, I mean, during the 2019 election, somebody graffitied on my office, Andrea, why don't you just kill yourself? And do you know the only newspapers would pick it up? It'd be the centre-right newspapers, you know, the Conservative newspapers. The BBC didn't pick it up. Nobody did. And that's why I get so annoyed, these double standards. And I think the sad thing is it's a true reflection of society, and I think the general public feels this as well. They feel quite helpless. And the thing is, I've had that many now, I become numb to it. And that is a sad reflection of society, Patrick. And nobody should be in that place. Society should not be in that place.
No.
Questionable judgment. In 2020, she provides a character reference for an individual who made violent threats against Labour MP Yvette Cooper, the wife of the previously mentioned Ed Balls, describing him as decent and honest. The eternal political instinct, to excuse the inexcusable, if it happens to be ideologically convenient. And then we arrive at the gesture heard round the country. In 2022, Spaffer Johnson resigns. Jenkins walks down Downing Street and raises her middle finger at protesters.
Here's a woman where I think deserves some opprobrium, and this is Andrea Jenkins, who unbelievably is an education minister now for this country. And this is her outside Downing Street when there were a group of people on Labour. I think you were there at the time when this happened. And this is how she responded to people giving her a bit of a hard time. She literally flipped the bird out. This is an education minister. And I'm sorry, I thought that was ridiculous behaviour.
Unbelievable. She was charging up Whitehall as well. She already had a vendetta. She's one of those characters that normally you kind of keep at bay. She's quite an angry backbencher. You don't normally let her go on the television, and this is a pure example, perfect example of why you don't.
But she's now in government.
Yeah, but I mean, look who's in government. It's basically the
Well, I
only
know, but
person
she's
who's
still in
left,
government. I
isn't
mean,
it?
Quentin, will you defend that kind of behaviour?
I think you're getting...
You seem a civilised man to me.
You're getting very sensitive in your old age. I didn't realise you were so censorious and keen to
I'm
be
not. I
upset.
don't think education ministers should be flipping the bird at people in public outside Downing Street. Do you?
I'm quite rude sometimes, people say, but I don't do that particular gesture. But there was quite a heated day. People were very upset, and also there was some Egypts at the gates of Downing Street
Hardly
who were
any, though.
kicking off.
Truly, hardly. I promise you.
I think
I was there as well.
I think we need a return to civility in public life.
A moment of pure, unfiltered political expression. No speechwriters. No spin. Just instinct. And what does that instinct say? Not leadership, not dignity, but I have lost control of my emotions in public. She later explains she was provoked, but of course she was. They always are. Accountability in politics is like a ghost, and one is more likely to see flying pink elephants. Although it's frequently mentioned, so rarely seen. Minister briefly. She becomes a minister, under Sparfer Johnson, then Liz Lettuce Truss, and then gone. 49 days later. Because the government itself collapses faster than her ministerial career. A perfect alignment of instability. Loyalty again, flexible. She backs Liz Lettuce Truss. Then turns on very fishy Rishi Sunak. Submits a no-confidence letter, because consistency, once again, is optional. Principle in this case appears to be whatever fits the moment. The fall. In 2024, her constituency is abolished. She runs in a new seat and loses. Decisively. And just like that, Parliament is over for her, at least for the time being. The denial phase. September 2024. She attends a Deformed UK Plc conference. "Oh, I'm not defecting," she says. "I'm just having a look." And which, dear viewer, if you've been following my investigations, you will know that this has a very familiar ring to it. Ah, yes. The political equivalent of, "I'm not leaving you, I'm just exploring other options." The inevitable defection, November 2024. She defects, of course she does, to Deformed UK Plc, because by this point, the trajectory is obvious and was inevitable. From Conservative MP to ideological rebel, to political exile, to reinvention. The mayoral resurrection. Moving along to 2024, she runs for mayor of Greater Lincolnshire, wins, with 42%. Not overwhelming, but sufficient, because in modern politics, survival is victory. Were the voters in Lincolnshire all suffering from a form of collective brain damage? Reality versus alternative reality. Now we reach perhaps the most remarkable moment. Climate change. She is asked, "Do you believe it exists?" "No," followed by a pause. Then, "Not, I disagree on policy," or "Not, I question implementation." No, but just a flat denial. In the year 2025, followed by, "It depends on what evidence you look at." Yes, the ultimate fallback. Reality is negotiable. Evidence is optional. Truth is subjective. At this point, Barrett Holmes does not deduce, as it's beyond mind-boggling.
You might have heard about a political party that's often in the news, Reform UK. Even though they only have 5 elected members of Parliament, a recent poll suggested that if there was a general election now, more people would vote for Reform than any other party. The party regularly makes it into the headlines, especially when it comes to some of its members' controversial views, particularly on climate change. Recently, we saw reports that Reform's first ever mayor, Dame Andrea Jenkins, who was elected in Greater Lincolnshire, said that she doesn't believe climate change exists. But her claim is fake news! Reform has been criticised for spreading misinformation about climate change. At a press conference recently, Dame Andrea and other Lincolnshire Reform Party members said they have declared war on green energy projects and plan to fight against things like big solar farms coming to their area. But we know from our school science lessons that global warming is real, and the way to slow it down is to use less fossil fuels and more clean green energy. Many experts have warned that extreme weather, like the recent heat waves we've seen in the UK, is the new normal, and that's down to climate change.
The performance returns, and then, the final act. She walks onto the stage at a Deformed UK Plc conference and sings a self-written song. Insomniac. Health and safety warnings were issued. People reported temporary hearing issues.
To the stage, Reform UK Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire, Dame Andrea Jenkins.
I'm an insomniac! I'm an insomniac! Staring at the ceiling! Yes, I'm an insomniac! I'm an insomniac! down to that floor, he's down to that floor, I'm an insomnia. Yeah, I'm an insomnia.
Reformers, welcome to conference.
And thus the circle completes itself. From soprano to a politician back to performance. Only now, it has become a captive audience that would leave if its members were not all living examples of brain-dead owners. Personal contradictions. Marriage. Affair allegations. Divorce. Public morality. Private complexity. The usual contradictions. Because in politics, values are often situational. The one gentle note. And yet, there is one small, almost comical redeeming detail. She supports the ban on fox hunting. Her dogs win awards, they prove to be more appealing than she is. And for a fleeting moment, one glimpses something almost human, almost grounded, and then it vanishes again into the noise. The Barrett home's final deduction, the brutal truth. So, what is Andrea Jenkins? Not simple, not consistent, not easily defined. She is something far more chaotic. A collision of ambition, performance, grievance, reinvention, and contradiction. A politician who rose unexpectedly, fought loudly, governed briefly, collapsed publicly, reinvented herself, and kept going not because of clarity, not because of principle, but because modern politics rewards persistence, even when it lacks direction or cognitive reason. Closing the case file, the real pattern. And so we close the case. Not with outrage, not even with satire, but with recognition. Because once you have seen enough of these stories, you begin to understand these are not exceptions. They are the system working exactly as designed. Reward noise, ignore depth, promote visibility, forget substance. Until next time, and like, comment, subscribble, and share widely. Stay observant, stay skeptical. Question everything. I remain Barrett Holmes. And these, well, they are not leaders. They are the consequences of a lack of critical thinking. Come back soon for more Watching the Defectives.